Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
He did take $26 million less.
If I'm Joel Embiid, man, I'm asking for Daryl Morey to be fired and get the fuck out.
Lately in the media, James Harden has been getting a ton of heat in the 76ers trade situation. But what if I told you no one is innocent in this situation? What if I told you the most evil, the most manipulative, the most cunning man ever to be associated with the NBA was the GM of the 76ers right now? And that man is Daryl Morey. Morey graduated with an MBA from the prestigious MIT with an emphasis in statistics, which makes all the sense in the world because he never saw his players as actual people, but much rather as numbers that need to be added or in many cases subtracted so he can get the outcome that he desperately wanted, an NBA championship. In 2007, Morey would become the GM of the Rockets despite having little to absolutely no basketball experience outside of working for a company called Stats Inc., which is a sports data company. But Morey's name would not become well known until the signing of James Harden in 2012. The duo would see James Harden win multiple scoring titles, league MVPs, 9 playoff experiences, and Morey would win Executive of the Year. Yeah, they fell short of their championship expectations, but you could definitely not call their time together unsuccessful. So how do we go from this?
But do you think he's a better scorer, just scorer, than Michael Jordan?
If you look historically and you just say how, given the number of times he has the ball and given how efficient, I think the only one who comes close is actually Wilt Chamberlain.
To this.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
Well, it was like this all along. Just look at what Morey has done in between signing James and James now being traded to the Clippers. You'll start to see a pattern. When LeBron James made his decision to leave Miami and return to Cleveland, Daryl Morey and the Rockets were absolutely sure that Chris Bosh would want to leave Miami as well. Daryl Morey came out publicly and said that he was looking for a third star to put next to Dwight Howard and James Harden, but the Rockets already had a young and up-and-coming third star.
Now lost him back to Parsons, 5 on the shot clock. Parsons stepped back, fired.
Many fans and people around the league assumed Chandler Parsons was already the third star that Houston needed. That season, Parsons was averaging 17 points, 5 rebounds, and shooting 37% from 3. This is definitely solid numbers that you would want from your third option. So hearing that your GM say that they need a third star, especially during your contract extension year, would definitely raise some red flags. Daryl Morey will then let his homegrown talent just walk out the front door in hopes that he would maybe be able to sign a 33-year-old Chris Bosh, which, surprise, surprise, never ended up happening. But Parsons was not the only casualty of Morey's chase of Chris Bosh. Jeremy Lin was also traded in preparation to make cap space, but Jeremy Lin had already known he was on the chopping block for a long time. Do you remember this? This is an advert shown in the Rockets stadium to solicit Carmelo Anthony to join the Rockets. Yeah, this is definitely a super thirsty look, but it's not crazy until you take a closer look. Number 7 already belongs to a rotation guy on your team. That number belongs to Jeremy Lin. Just imagine walking into work at your factory and seeing your boss letting a guy he's interviewing try on your uniform, try on your hard hat, and put on your name badge. That's absolute insanity. Daryl Morey defended this by saying, "It's always a challenging situation during free agency. You are always having to recruit players, and there might be current players at current positions that might be people with current numbers. It's unfortunate that it's often hard to handle. Reality is, it's standard practice. When we went after Chris Bosh a few years ago, we had him in Scola's number. When we went after Dwight Howard, we had him in Patrick Beverley's number. I get the sensitivity and I hate that it creates some hurt feelings. Then why do you keep doing it? If you really hate that it hurts feelings, why do you continue to do it?" He then goes on to say, "Bottom line, if Carmelo comes, Jeremy Lin will have to be traded. It's just math. It's not personal. My job is every day to figure out how to win. Sometimes it creates challenging situations." Although these challenging situations never seem very challenging for Daryl Morey. You do not have to disrespect the guys you already have on your roster to advertise for stars to come join you. Daryl Morey has shown time and time again he does not care about you as a person, only about what you can produce. Just look at what he did when he finally got the star players he was advertising for, and then they ended up not producing to the level that he wanted. Carmelo Anthony, the same guy that you publicly embarrassed Jeremy Lin for, only played 10 games. Only 10 games before Daryl Morey decided they needed to part ways. When Daryl Morey was questioned about this, he said, "Carmelo had tremendous approach during his time with the Rockets and accepted every role head coach Mike D'Antoni gave him. The fit we envisioned when Carmelo chose to sign with the Rockets has not materialized. Therefore, we thought it would be best to move on. Other outcome may become unfair to him." This is a guy who is a perennial all-star who took a bench role to help this team, and you publicly say that you're ready to waive him or trade him. You don't care as long as he is gone in only 10 games out of nowhere. After this news broke, Melo would then call his then teammate Chris Paul to see if he had anything to do with the sudden change. Maybe, it was Chris Paul. Maybe it was James Harden who said they weren't happy with having Carmelo on the team. Paul told Carmelo that he was just as surprised as him and he had no hand in this situation at all. So Melo then warned Paul to be on the lookout because he could obviously see the writing on the wall. And that warning would turn into foreshadowing. Chris Paul would meet with Daryl Morey to have a conversation about his future and security with this team. And Daryl Morey assured Chris that he will be going nowhere and that he is a vital and important part of this Houston Rockets team. And then just 2 days later, Chris Paul learns that he's being traded from a Twitter notification. Look at what's happening around you. Obviously, this is what gets you when you're playing under Daryl Morey. Everyone says James Harden quit his way out of every team, but I believe Daryl Morey was in his ear trying to get him to Philly all along. James Harden even said it himself, Philadelphia was always his preferred destination. So to make that happen, James turned down the biggest contract extension of the time for $103 million for 2 years because he did not want to be in Houston and knew it would be easier to get traded without this giant contract. Then he gets to the Nets and turns down yet another extension so that way he could reunite with Daryl Morey in Philadelphia. This was always the plan. Daryl Morey then convinced James to take another $15 million pay cut when joining the 76ers so they could sign more role players like PJ Tucker. So James Harden missed out on almost $200 million total dollars chasing Daryl Morey. It sounds like a lot of commitment coming from a so-called quitter. In the end, things did not go the way Daryl Morey envisioned with having this all-star duo of Embiid and James Harden since they fell short against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Still, James was looking to get that long-term deal that would retire him a 76er, like him and Morey definitely talked about when Harden decided to take that initial pay cut. It's common practice, even though it is illegal by CBA rules, for GMs to promise a player a larger or more long-term contract if they first agree to that initial pay cut. Situations like this make you understand why these actions are banned. Even Danny Green took a massive pay cut to get James Harden on the 76ers. His debut bonus was $500,000 initially, and Daryl Morey convinced him to only take $200 so the team could save on taxes and get James Harden, only for Green to be waived when James Harden was traded to the Clippers just for cap space. I don't know when these players will start having their own self-interest in mind, especially when you have to work with Daryl Morey. So back to the James drama. Daryl Morey probably told James something like, "I'm sorry we can't sign you to a long-term deal, and I understand you're upset. So why don't you just opt in so I can trade you and make things right?" And guess what happens right after James Harden opts into his contract? The 76ers say they have absolutely no interest in trading James Harden anymore. What? You told this man to opt in just so you could trade him. But this type of behavior should not be surprising by now. And you understand why James Harden had to force his way out. Daryl Morey does not care who you are, how loyal you are, or what you're willing to sacrifice. He only cares about the numbers and statistics. To Morey, everyone is disposable.